mentioned Anthony Jeselnik. You discussed him before. He also mentioned you on his show. What makes you a fan of his?
I think I really like the structure of jokes. I like to be surprised. I like sometimes for a joke to feel like I like a magic trick. And in a way, Jeselnik's jokes, they he always kind of gives you the setup and surprises you with what the punchline is. He doesn't necessarily rely on the the energy or the little joke, little joke, little joke, big joke. He really goes, I'm going to go slow. I'm going to give you time, and the punchline is going to surprise you. And with this kind of point of view that is mean. I think I like mean humor. I think if I'm being honest with myself, I think most people, they're being honest with themselves. They have a lot of dark thoughts, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they mean them or they want to act on them, but your brain just can't help but think of a horrible thing, and Justin, it kind of gives voice to that, and I just it's also like fun to watch people watch Anthony Jeselnik, like my stepfather, who's, as I said, very conservative, not just politically, but also in like what's appropriate and whatnot. I watched him watch Thoughts and Prayers, which is one of my favorite comedy specials of all time, Jeselnik's, I think, third special. And to watch him really just, despite his own beliefs, laugh before he could disapprove is very cool. And it inspired me to set a high bar for my own punchlines. So I'm just always excited to see whatever he does, because a lot of comedians, almost without fail, get worse as they get older. It's really true. It's kind of sad to witness. And I think, aside from what I like about his humor, I think Jeselnik is like patient and measured in a way that is rare in comedy, and it makes me always look forward to kind of watching what he comes out with next.
For sure. Why do you think comedians get worse as they get older?
It's just a matter of time. I mean, I feel like I'm certainly in the thick of that battle where writing really good comedy takes an enormous amount of time and thought that people wouldn't people not in comedy wouldn't necessarily expect, where for a joke to really be surprising, it's kind of like with horror. You have to scare someone, but with comedy you have to literally, it's not just enough to be funny, you also have to surprise them. I mean, this is another reason why I think Jeselnik is so good, is that he continues to surprise you with what he says. And that's what makes stand-up comedy so challenging, is you can't just kind of be goofy or be silly. I mean, you can, but to really make an audience, like, in their gut go, ha, 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 produce laughter out of nowhere, it has to have that extra edge of a magic trick, that it almost takes your breath away and you didn't see it coming.
Hmm.
And as comedians get older, they have life responsibilities, and moreover, like, money responsibility. They have to go do press, and they're writing a book, and they're acting, and they're doing podcasts, and they're, these days worrying about social media. They don't have as much time to really fine tune their comedy. And there's also the thing of, like, you can write all you want. You have to test it in front of audiences, and audiences, they are your ruler in terms of, like, oh, did that
Right.
work? Did this thing I construct work? And as you become more well known, you have fans, and those fans can give you incorrect measurements, so to speak, where they like you, they want to laugh, they're your friend, and you can you can use that. You can use the fact that you get their attention to construct something interesting and new and maybe a little more dark, or maybe a little more whatever you want to build. But it can also lull you into a sense of accomplishment when really what you're doing is not as funny as it used to be. When I had to write jokes in the beginning, I had to go up in front of crowds who didn't know me from Adam and make them laugh despite not knowing me, despite not liking me, despite disagreeing with me. Now, if I headline, I'm performing for people who are already on my side.
Mm.
And again, like that can allow me to do some cool stuff that I couldn't do when I was fighting for my life. But at the same time, it can make me lazy and not quite as vicious when I'm constructing jokes that really hit every second. And that balance is tough. And if you're Jerry Seinfeld and you walk up to practically a standing ovation right up the gate, you're going to get soft.
Mm.
So I think it's really tough. And I've seen comedians get worse and then better, but a lot of comedians as they get older, you just see them make work that sometimes is deeper, sometimes more interesting, but ultimately from a comedic perspective is usually just a little bit lazier and not quite as surprising.
I think what I'm curious about is that what you said is really poignant and important, that you already have the crowd on your side. When you would go from town to town and you would try out a joke, let's say it was in Birmingham, Alabama, and it didn't hit, and then you would go to Nashville, Tennessee, and it hit a little better, and you did the same joke. When do you know, as a comedian, on how to adjust what you're saying? Or is it just like a game that you are competing against yourself to try and tinker as much as possible? Or there was a glimmer of hope when I was, in this example, in Nashville, and I just stick with it?
I mean, listen, again, it's like, it's almost city specific doesn't even apply to me anymore. In a way where, like, if I go to Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm headlining, that audience is probably going to be the most left-leaning audience, because in Birmingham, there's only so many places for these people to go on a Thursday night.
Mm.
So, like, you always try to learn, and you try to take, it's this weird mix. This is where comedy gets so weird, where it's like, yes, do I take in what the audience says or a different place says? But at the same time, I have to balance it with, okay, if I'm performing for an audience of Orthodox Jews,
Oh,
and I say this as a Jew,
yes, as a Jew, I'm loving this already.
am I going to measure all my jokes about Israel just based on that audience? No. But can I make a joke that's so good that even in a room where people disagree with me on a fundamental level, still laugh? That can be a goal. But if you go too far, then you start pandering. So it really is this balance beam of, like, pandering to the audience versus surprising the audience, challenging the audience. And you just take the average of all your data. I don't go places, I simply don't have the time to, I'm performing at a college tonight. I have no idea, is it going to be mostly freshmen, college kids? Is it going to be people outside campus? I have no idea.
What school?
Case Western. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, I know one person that went to Case Western. That's
sure.
It. One person.
And I was invited to two Shabbat dinners, and I normally don't have time, but I was invited by one, which is the kind of pro-Palestinian leaning Chabad group. And I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'll go to this. This feels, I'm happy to do this. But I was invited by another one that, it didn't mention anything. Mm-hmm. They're both going to be there tonight. What the fuck am I going to do with that information? I'm there ultimately to share what I have.